Hello and welcome, everybody. Brian is not with us yet. He hopefully will be, but don't worry. We brought in a ringer who is another dude from Jersey who's got a beard. So, if you don't pay that much attention, it's almost like the same person.
We're all interchangeable.
Yeah, there we go. So we're going to do, let's see, Matt. I'm Matt.
This
Mike,
is Matt.
This is Matt. Matt is your name.
Matt. This is Matt, my friend Matt.
The reason why Matt is on, and this is going to be a thing we do this winter, where we bring on a series of people that know a lot more about hockey than we do. Because we were talking about this, about Mike, about how we don't really know what we're talking about. So rather than try to fudge it, we're just going to bring on some people every now and then that know what they're talking about. Because we're going to have, so Matt's the first of what will probably be many sort of hockey correspondents, if you will.
I'm here in the trenches reporting.
So do you want to start with that, or do you want to start with your football thing, Mike? I'll leave it up to you to choose your own adventure.
Let's start with hockey because Matt has a life and we don't, and we should let him get back.
Perfect. So Matt, I have one question for you, and then I'll let you just take it away and run with it, which is the true or false, the Rangers are off to, and this is a very strong word in the sports world, they are off to what would be considered a historic start right now.
Historic? They're the best team in the history of the sports. End of segment.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
That's it.
I mean, I can't use the word historic to describe it when the Bruins are currently on their second straight year of on pace for the greatest record in the history of the regular season. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I can, in the history that to be honest, I think they're 17-4-1, not counting the game that's currently happening right now, which I left after the second period.
They're on?
Yeah.
He's a hardcore fan, guys.
Weird schedule this weekend. They played at 4 yesterday and 6 today. To be honest, I don't know where this one ranks in the history of their first quarter of the season, over the course of the entire franchise. But 17-4-1, I did not have them being, maybe one of the best records in the league on my bingo card for this year. Certainly not.
And talking about the Bruins, they took down the Bruins last week in their own house, right in front of everybody too. So that was kind of a big deal as well. Yep. And can you answer a question for me? And Mike and I did not know this. Maybe it's just me, the idiot, who didn't know. With hockey records, what's that last digit? There's the wins, the losses, and then there's points, or is it ties? What the fuck is that?
Overtime or shootout losses. So they are losses, but as part of the compromise, no more ties after the 04 lockout. They instituted the shootout, but if you go to overtime or a shootout and lose, you still get one pity point, whereas you used to each team would get a point if you tied. Now if you win in overtime or a shootout, you get 2 points, and if you lose in overtime, you still get one.
So that last digit is a total of points from overtime.
Games? 17. So 17-4-1. They're technically 17-5, but one of them was a loss in overtime or a shootout. So you still get one. The standings in the NHL goes by points. You get 2 for a win, and so even though the ones at the very end are losses, you get one. You get one pity point.
So just for hanging in there. So it's like foreign soccer. You can play for a tie and still get something out of it.
Correct. Yeah. So if 1 point would be nice in the standings, and it's the last 5 minutes of a tie game. Maybe don't do anything stupid. Maybe just kind of run the clock to get to overtime. Correct. Yeah. But
you get something.
Ties are un-American. We decided we didn't want.
Isn't hockey mostly a non-American sport?
It doesn't matter. We took over and we demanded no more ties. So I don't know. We have a habit of doing that, I guess. So yeah.
All right. So back to the Rangers. Do you see this hot streak keeping up, or do you think this may or may not be a flash in the pan and they're going to kind of come back down to earth in the remainder of the season?
I mean, nothing lasts forever. It's a long season.
I'm hearing it's the coach. How much has the coach really impacted the team?
It's funny. This is one of those anecdotes people only tell to make themselves look better. If I can pull a Mike Francesa move here, I knew the coach was a great idea from day one. Obviously.
Right.
But it was
don't kibosh him now.
No, of course. But the coach was Laviolette. When they hired him, a lot of people were not thrilled. There's a big thing. Hockey uses a lot of retreads. They just kind of do musical chairs. One guy will fail one place and fails another place. It's just a constant cycle. So when everyone's like, oh, it's just a retread, and then they'll hire somebody new, like who is new to the NHL ranks, and they're no good. And it's like, well, why did we hire someone with no experience? And it's just like if it doesn't work, everyone's pissed off no matter what you did. Right. But Laviolette has had a really good career. He's taken 3 different teams to the Stanley Cup final over the past 20 years. He's had a good amount of success everywhere he's gone. Even when he got fired from Washington, but he wasn't even that bad there. The team just kind of got old. So when they hired him, I was pretty optimistic. I actually think a lot of Rangers fans loved John Tortorella, myself included. He brought a ton of intensity. Yeah. And him and Laviolette, part of the reason the Rangers and Flyers were great rivals during the early 2010s is because Laviolette was the coach of the Flyers, and they were very similar. They had very similar personalities, very intense, and they made it was when you're too similar, you hate each other even more.
Absolutely.
So I always kind of liked Lavi. Did I expect them to be this good? No. There's definitely been some things that have fallen into place, especially after last year. Things really left a poor taste, I think, in everyone's mouth. The way the Gallant era kind of had to end, unfortunately. The Rangers had 2 really good seasons, but it was back to back. Yeah. No, it's not even that it wasn't enough. It's one thing to lose, but it was back-to-back seasons where you're up 2 games to none in the playoffs, and then the other team changes something, and you don't just lose; you get completely dominated. After it was in Game 3, the Rangers were up 2-0, and then something happened, and I think they got 1 even strength goal the entire rest of the series. And then last year against the Devils, up 2-0. It was the first 2 games were a joke. They were complete domination. And then it was like squeezing blood from a stone the rest of the entire series. So
that has to be frustrating as hell. Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that you would say, well, that's got to be they adjusted, you didn't adjust to their adjustment. You'd say that's a coaching failure if it happens twice. I mean, they're 2 great teams. I mean, there's no shame in losing either one of those teams, but for it to happen twice in a row, I was definitely ready to move on from Gallant.
Well, it's a tough shit rule.
This good though.
In any bit job, whether it's sports or otherwise, if something that bad goes wrong when you're in charge, you lose your job. It's the tough shit rule. That's just life. You know what I mean? It's
not always. I think Nathaniel Hackett would have something to say differently about that.
So
we can't all be friends with Aaron Rodgers, I guess.
That's right.
So let me ask a very elementary question, because again, we don't really know what the hell we're talking about. When we designed the logo for Nosebleeders, there is a hockey puck in the logo, but we're not experts. So if someone's brand new to the sport, and
is there?
Hey, I heard the Rangers were. I think there's a hockey puck in there, right?
Go ahead, I'll look.
Yeah, you look. So
I'm just looking into my screen.
If someone's brand new to it, and someone like me, for instance, says to you, hey, I heard the Rangers are really good this year, all the other teams in New York suck, I'm looking for something to latch onto, what's one player you would say that a casual fan can sort of latch onto to bring that entertainment value and to give them a reason to tune in?
One, certainly the Rangers, and the Rangers fans are very spoiled. Definitely the goalies. I mean, Henry Lundqvist is the hero of my early adult life. For 15 years, he was the man. I mean,
he's someone that even I know who he is. So that's how I know he's an icon, at least in that sport, and definitely in this city.
Yeah, he was just the definition of a rock star. He was so good. He was so competitive. He was one of those guys who, I mean, he had an aura, just with the suits and the good looks, and he played the guitar on the Tonight Show. He was just he drove the fancy Maseratis, and he always looked like $1 million. He was so that's kind of how I got into the sport. I was kind of a late bloomer. I didn't really watch hockey until I got to college, and then I became obsessed with it.
Okay.
And then when I saw Henrik, I was I want to play. I want to be a goalie, and I still am to this day.
Yeah, he's huge because I remember right around when Derek Jeter was retiring, a lot of people were saying, well, now who's the guy in New York? Who's the icon of this city? And a lot of people were saying, no, it's this guy. It's Henrik. Yeah. He's the guy who's taken the torch from Jeter as sort of the top athlete representing the city.
Yeah.
And for a period of time, I think he was.
Yeah. After Jeter and David Wright left, there weren't too many guys who had been in the city for 12 plus years, and for him to be there for 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's not too many lifers, especially in today's era with, free agency and everything. So definitely it was Henrik. And then now their goalie, Igor Shesterkin, is how they're letting down like one player on the team. So yeah, it's so if I had to pick a guy, definitely Shesterkin is unbelievably good. He's he's the man. He's great. I would pick him. I'm biased. I love goalies, but I'd pick him.
I think Phil. I think you're muted. Could you hear Phil?
Sorry, no, my bad. I had my mic. I was burping, so I turned my mic off for a minute. I was going to ask another question.
Phil does that a lot. He burps.
I drink a lot of seltzer. That's why.
Seltzer, yeah.
So I would wonder this: is it so? Obviously, the Rangers are off to a very hot start. Yeah. Who are the other teams in the league that you would see as the main threats to them right now? We already mentioned Boston. Is there any other teams where it's like when they're matched up, you kind of watch out, like, oh shit, this is going to be a big game on Saturday, or what? Who are those kind of teams right now?
I mean, Boston's easily the best. It's funny. The Rangers are going to go. My dad loves to do this. He would I never pay attention to this, but Dad will constantly text me if the playoffs started today, this is who we'd match up against. And I'm like, it's December. Like, I don't care.
I'm one of those guys too, actually.
Yeah. So I've never been one of those guys who I don't pay attention to that until like the end of the year. But yeah, if the playoffs started today, they're really struggling lately. The Tampa Bay Lightning would be the team we'd match up against. And from a standing standpoint, that would be like a total mismatch. But the Tampa Bay Lightning are just coming off of like 3 straight trips to the finals, and they won 2 of them. They're one of those. So the Rangers at some point, if they keep this up, they're probably going to be one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the conference, and they're going to get matched up against some team that's going to sneak in like at the bottom, like Tampa Bay or the Penguins or some. If the Devils, get their shit together, and they're going to match up against one of those teams who won't have a record that's nearly as good as them. But once the playoffs start, like, it's a whole different game. It doesn't matter as much. Like, the regular season goes out the window, and you're going to have to defeat guys who only as recently as last year or 2 years ago were like one of the best teams in the league. So Boston like scares me. Like, that would be like a tough one. But to be honest, like, there's really no cupcake rides in the. There we go. We got the.
Rangers are.
You could just pull it up on your actual computer, Mike, and put it full screen. You could. But here's I guess the thing that's weird about hockey, to me anyway, as somebody who doesn't follow it all that closely, is it, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't like more than half the league actually make the playoffs or something like that?
Yeah, it's like basketball where it's like you get 16 teams make it, and then there's only 32 now. So yeah, it's
the playoffs are 3 months long.
Games, man. You got to win. Yeah, the playoffs are like a solid 2 months. You got to win 4. Best of 7 series. It's brutal. So and every year, like last year in the playoffs, a lot of great teams went home nice and early. So it's
all right.
Yeah, there's been. I mean, if the Toronto Maple Leafs have had one of the best regular season teams every single year for like 8 years, and they've been out of the first round of the playoffs one time, and it's like every single year, like the whole city goes into a complete meltdown. It's like, I can't believe like we have to wait one more year again to try this again, and it's like, those years they should have done it, but also like it's brutal. It's so hard. Like even the Rangers, I know they haven't won since '94, but like they've had some deep playoff runs. They've consistently made it. I mean, there's teams that are struggling to get out of the first round. I mean, it's brutal. The playoffs are rough, man.
So last hockey question before we move on to Mike's thing. What would you, in your opinion, would be a disappointment for this season in terms of how deep of a run the Rangers do make?
I don't know. It would probably just be. It would be disappointing if the team feels different than it did last year. Last year was frustrating because it was they really wanted. They traded 2 first-round picks for 2 veteran guys at the deadline. They went up 2-0. It really didn't work. They didn't get much production from like a lot of the younger guys who they're counting on. Artemi Panarin, it was kind of the second straight really disappointing playoff for him. And now this year, Panarin's on fire. He's off to like the best start of his entire career. He's a monster. A lot of like Alexis Lafreniere, who was the top pick a few years ago, after 3 years of like really being like, this guy's not working out, he's finally off to a really good start. So if the Rangers like lose in the first or second round, it would be a disappointment. But like if they lose in 7 in the second round to Boston or somebody, it'd be like that sucks. But they're a great team.
Okay.
If it's they lose because like the same, like putting on another lousy playoff. If the team goes up 2-0 and then gets dominated again, it's the same thing as the last few years. That would be a big disappointment. I think. Shit happens in the playoffs. Like it's very, very hard to win
any sport. Small sample size. I get that. No, for sure. I like this. So Matt, thanks for popping in. You can hang out with us for Mike's rant, or you can go if you got to go. I mean, it's up to you. I'll leave it up to you.